Thanks, Scott. And now we have Mark Lancaster with the 5 Counties Salmonid Conservation Program.
I know I stand between you and lunch, so I'll start quick. I hate following Scott. Anyone who can talk without PowerPoints is an amazing speaker. So I'm going to talk about 2 things. I'm going to celebrate restoration work that we've done for the last 15 years, and then I'm going to try to have enough time to talk about what I think are some things we've got to do going forward, particularly around the approach we do things in California. So which one of these? I have 40 slides. You're never going to keep up with me. Which one of these is the page button, bottom left page? Let's see what happens. All right, here we go. So I'm going to back up. The 5 Counties Salmonid Conservation Program, if you don't know it, was founded in 1997. It was the precursor to the North Coast Regional Partners. Randy Poole in 2002 had seen what we did, and he said we can do this for a much larger region. So from that beginning, we formed with the listing of the coho, and the reason is that the counties of Humboldt, Del Norte, Mendocino, Trinity, and Siskiyou had seen what had happened with the listing of the northern spotted owl in 1988. They'd seen the economic and social disruption that happened in those counties. They weren't making judgments as to why those disruptions happened. They were reacting to the effects of it. Unemployment rose, domestic violence calls rose, alcoholism rose, truancy in schools rose, school populations declined as the economy shifted rapidly over about a decade to a decade and a half. So when the coho was listed or proposed to be listed, these counties said, we're not sitting on the sidelines. We're going to take an active role in this federal process, and we're going to have a say in what happens. They also had the motivation in that they had a lot of the infrastructure that was a limitation to coho. Most roads were county roads. The first roads built were county roads. They were built down in the bottom of creeks because there were no bulldozers. There was hand labor. They were built low in the system. These counties recognized that they had an important component to the recovery of the species. But what the county said is they set one goal, the boards of supervisors. And this is that goal. But you'll see that it is not to restore salmon. It's to protect the economic and social resources of Northwest California. But the counties are not stupid. They knew the only way to do that was to implement highly effective conservation strategies. And more importantly, and probably the biggest take-home lesson, is they abandoned political boundaries to make decisions. They said, we're going to work on a watershed basis. This program is the largest conservation program under a federal species listing in the United States, both in area and scope. It is the model, if you will, for how local governments can respond to endangered species listings. So in 1998, the county set out with our program. They inventoried all county roads, 4,000 miles of them, found 280 barriers to fish passage on county roads. They inventoried roads for sediment sources. They identified weaknesses in county practices and policies, how they managed the roads. And they began a large number of projects to improve those. I'm not going to go into those. I don't have time. I am going to very quickly focus on the fish passage side for a couple of reasons. One is that opening habitat is a pretty good bang for the buck. 280 barriers. This is Morrison Gulch. You can't see it because it's dark. Fish is jumping, can't get in it. Prioritized, we had about 80 barriers that block about 75% of all of the habitat behind county roads. So those are the top 80 barriers we're going to work on. Between 2000 and 2013, we've removed 62 of those barriers, opened up 145 miles of habitat that was previously cut off. That's more habitat than behind Trinity Dam. The response sometimes is phenomenal. Here you can see there's a green line right here. This is Morrison Gulch. That's when the county removed the barrier. This is coho returns every year since then. So we opened up an entire channel. You say, but wait, there's some fish prior to that, before you removed the barrier. Well, those fish got there because we got tired of waiting for the regulatory agencies to get off their asses and give us the permits to restore the creek. So what we did is we netted the fish and we moved them upstream. So we preceded the watershed. Unfortunately, I will say the number 3 worst impact to fisheries restoration is the agencies charged with fisheries restoration. I'm not going to show you photos of 62 barrier structures. I just want to take home a message that is, these counties have a lot of culverts. A lot of these projects that remove barriers to fish are also saving these counties millions of dollars. In my counties, every year we have a collapse of at least one large diameter culvert each year, on average. So these are county roads that are literally collapsing and failing. A lot of the barrier sites tend to be those crossings that are most critically damaged or not performing correctly because they're undersized, they get a lot of gravel going through them, the bottoms rot out, they plug easy. When we get done, what we typically have are channels that convey the 100-year storm flow, bed load, and debris, and we use a wide variety of construction techniques. I don't have enough time to tell you this, but I do want to say every one of these types of projects is a massive endeavor that when you look at the before and you look at the after, it looks like you plopped it in there. It's not that way. And so over the last 15 years or 13 years, we've spent $15.8 million in restoring habitat on county roads. About 2/3 to 70% of that has come from grant sources, and about 1/3 has come from counties. One of the side benefits of that, particularly since 2008, is that we were actually very fortunate. Our funding remained stable during the economic downturn. So we picked up a lot of construction companies and a lot of timber companies who were not working, and we were able to employ them in doing a number of projects. And although we do fish passage, we also do a wide variety of other types of projects: road sediment reduction, stormwater discharge, education components, and you've seen a lot of demonstrations of that already. Okay, I'm going to walk you through one more here really quick. This is Private Ryan. This project we just finished last week, and it was only possible because of what happened on the county projects downstream. This is a downstream county barrier removed in 2011. That winter got a phenomenal salmon run for the first time upstream, and I'm not kidding. I got a call from a landowner complaining they were kept up all night by salmon in the creek. Then this year we found coho in here, and there have not been coho in this age cohort in more than 20 generations. So, we are hearing that coho are declining. They are declining. But when you open habitat, a few of them have a chance to get established. I'm sorry this is so dark. There is a pipe, 5-foot diameter pipe, a jump, a huge outlet pool. If you see an outlet pool, you have an undersized culvert. This pipe is collapsing. You can see it's disconnected here. You can't see this. It's completely rotted. 4,000 cubic yards or 400 dump truck loads of sediment above it. Private property upstream of our county project. So we just went in, we tore out the old pipe. Here's a 14-foot diameter pipe. Here's what it looks like now to the fish. There's the old pipe, there's the new pipe. Private Ryan. By the way, if you want to hear a tale of agencies gone rogue, come see me about that one. And I will tell you the blackmail that we had to pull to get it built. So in addition to passing fish, county projects are having numerous other benefits, and I want to talk about restoring stream function. This is Weaver Creek, 8-foot diameter pipe, completely leaking underneath, rotted, great swimming hole. Like so many of our projects in the last 2 decades, we're seeing these catastrophic fires upstream. So we built Weaver Creek in 2000. 2001, a stand replacing fire burned the entire watershed down to that channel. 2004, a storm, 5-year, greatly exaggerated because the upstream slopes have burned. A clump of trees has fallen in the middle of the creek. By 2006, that clump has now formed a beautiful log debris collection. If this was not a fully restored stream channel, we would have gone in there with backhoes and removed that log debris. We could not risk plugging the county culvert. Here it is, 2006. Because we had built a system that was capable of allowing natural bed load and debris to flow, here's a nice storm in 2010 at that location. Here's 2012. Natural system moved through. 2011, you can see the upstream. Here's the crossing. You can't see it, but I'll bring you to that point. In 2012, nice storm. Again, remember, this watershed is burned upstream. A lot of this material has moved on through the system. Here is inside the pipe. You can see, or the arch in here. This is 2011, a lot of large diameter wood. 2012, completely routed through and now moving downstream to where it's critically needed to provide habitat. So we didn't have to place large wood. What we had to do was restore the channel and let the large wood function. We also were able to move restore natural bed load and debris moving. Okay, now I'm going to switch gears. My name is Mark. I'm a grant addict. I haven't had a grant in 2 hours. Our program spent $25 million probably in the last 15 years, and our source of funds are drying up. And California can't keep going with the approach it has. There's this whole state of Jefferson thing, which I think is really a cry. My daughters call where we live in Weaverville the hipneck community. It's hippies and rednecks. And sometimes they get together and mate and make hipnecks. And we have this duality of loving the land and living off the land and trying to find ways to balance that. And so California is not really doing a great job of that. And I know my Siskiyou board members are happy with me right this second, but they'll change here in a second. All right, not much time. Full disclosure, I'm a forester. I'm a college graduate. I was a local land use planner and a code enforcement person for a long time, and now I'm a conservation program director. I'm a timber landowner. I don't know what else. Who cares? I paid $221,000 in state taxes, fees, registrations in the last 38 years. This is a pitch to all my conservative friends. I care about how money gets spent in California. I don't have time to talk about a lot of this stuff, so I'm going to skip these. But I'm going to tell you that this act is out there, and this drives me friggin' nuts. California, Caltrans, is the #1 biggest impediment to migration, barrier, reestablishment in this state. California Caltrans has completed 2 barrier projects in a decade. There is a new law. We worked for years to change the federal law to allow us to use federal highway transportation funds to restore aquatic organism connectivity. All of you board members from your counties, next time your Caltrans planner comes to you and talks about your overall work program, you ask them why they're not implementing MAP 21 section 1119. Tribal people, I don't know if anyone around here is aware of this. This bill was amended to include very incredible language to encourage tribes to address fish passage structures on their properties. Call me if you're interested. Oops, we don't want to see that. Okay, I want to change the way we do things. I want to make some shifts in money. I'm going to geek you out here for a second. Just trust me, these are real. Stip and Shop, Caltrans budget. If we move 1/2 of 1% of Caltrans budget into addressing fish passage, wildlife crossing, and water quality, we can increase the amount of habitat access by far more than what we're doing throughout the rest of the state. If we can move $40 million out of that same Stip and Shop funds and create a new program in the state called PLA, the Private Lands Habitat Account, I made that up, I'll show you what we'll do with it. But all of this is 1/2 of 1% of the Caltrans budget, which, by the way, if you look at the number of signs in Caltrans, they could probably just reduce the number of signs they put up. If we could move most of you who are not developers aren't familiar with this, if we could remove this fee from fishing game and put it into the PLA, and we could allocate some of the new timber tax that has already been, lumber tax has already been appropriated into PLA, I'll show you what we'll do with it. Those are all existing revenue sources, not talking about new taxes. These are new things. I don't have time to talk about them. See me at lunch. All right, what would we do with this PLA if we had it? What we would do is we would change the way California does things. First off, we'd recognize that private lands and private land management is critical. If you don't understand that, go look at the fragmentation of the forest. Go look at the amount of water being sucked out of the creeks. Look at the number of driveways, parking lots. The people who own timberlands and ag lands cannot afford to keep them. It is already, if it was a wildfire, you'd see it on the news every night, the conversion rate. This is an incentive-based approach concept to address that. It would, who cares? Moving on. It would create a number of things, and this goes back to my planning days: a habitat overlay zone, a habitat zone, public expenditure of funds on private lands, habitat property tax reduction, income tax credits, income tax deductions, mitigation credits. Wow, that was good. I guess that's what happens when you run out of time. All right, so habitat overlay zones. What these would be is areas maintained and managed for habitat. So if you're a timberland owner, right now you have a thing called culmination of mean annual increment. You can harvest your timber every 40 years. Maybe you have it in a Haas, maybe you harvest it every 60, 80, 90, 100, 120 years. It's not a permanent conservation easement, which a lot of conservative people are fearful of. It would include a programmatic EIR and permitting at the county level rather than the landowner level. It would be, annual restoration funds would be directed by Fish and Game commissions at the local level. So it would be a local approach to allocating money. It would allow inmate crews to do work. So for instance, removing non-native, public trust work, not benefit to the private landowner. Private landowners provide so many public trusts, removing non-natives, installing exclusion fence, placing really critical needed habitat elements, which you've seen already demonstrated today, removing ladder fuels, using fire. This is exactly what it would do. This is a California conservation camp crew working on a project. Bank eroded, the owner was going to put rock riprap instead, brought a crew in, designed a bioengineering slope, used bioengineering. It would allow that on private land. I don't know if you know, you can't do that. It would allow inmate crews to burn on private land. If we don't get control of our burning and our thinning on these timberlands and forest lands, we're going to be out of business. I want to use a real world example. This landowner donated 400 feet of his property, reestablished fish, endangered species on the property, let us completely rebuild his property. He got nothing out of it. And the only reason, it took us 2.5 years to convince him. If we had a way to reward those people, we would get a lot more people doing this. It's really weird. In California, they gave me a tax credit to put my solar panels up. But we don't pay for stormwater collection. We don't pay for rooftop. Why don't we give tax credits for environmental resources that have the same value as the ones that are popular, if you will? My Prius, I got a nice tax deduction. My windows, I got a nice tax deduction when I displaced them. So this particular landowner, 41,000 acres of rooftop rainwater collected from this roof, carried to here. 100% of all of his non-potable water is provided by what he collects in rooftop rainwater. By the way, everything around him is completely burned up because we have stand replacing fires all the time. And that's another thing that we're able to adapt to. Why can't we create tax incentive credits? This landowner had no motivation to remove this road. They did do it, but it would have been much easier if we could reward them for restoring the public trust, restoring hydrology, restoring function. I think I'm done. This is a landowner that gave up his property, took us a long time. This is what we did to his property. And that's the result. I really want to talk about regulations. I don't have time. I want to talk about the need for education. I don't have time. I'm done.